Hi guys, welcome back to the Mina Does Art Stuff YouTube channel. My name is Mina and on this channel we do art stuff. So, as you can see in front of me, I do not have a watercolour sketchbook or paper at all. This is a bullet journal. Yes, that is right. I have decided to have a go at bullet journaling. I picked up this bullet journal rather inexpensively from Amazon. I just wanted to give it a go. It's quite hefty and pretty thick, has 160 pages in it, I believe. From my research, that seems to be pretty standard, I guess. The pages are nice and thick, definitely feels nice. So yeah, we're gonna give this a go. I'm gonna set up this bullet journal for the month of October 2021 as my first month. We're just at the end of September now, and we'll see how this goes. I kind of want to try it out for this year, or the end of this year, the last 3-4 months of this year, just to see how I like it. And then if I decide I do like it, then I'm gonna try and keep going with it from, you know, for the foreseeable. I love making lists and I keep track of everything with lists, but I kind of want to have a slightly more organized way of keeping track of this stuff. Sorry if you can hear a lot of background noise. We've got our radiators being fitted today, so I'm trying to film this and I'm trying to not have to do everything with voiceover, but I think I might have to resort to voiceovers soon. Anyway, so I wanted to see if I could use watercolor in the bullet journal, because that would be fun, right? So I tore out a page from the back of the book, and it's definitely not suitable for any kind of wet media like watercolor at all, so that's a no-go. So I was thinking, okay, well, I could do some watercolor stuff if I want to include watercolor on watercolor paper and then stick it in. Problem is, watercolor paper is quite thick and this book is already pretty chunky, and I didn't want it to end up being like this and unclosable at the end. So you know, this might still happen with stuff getting stuck in, but I have this stack of Tomoe River paper, which is super thin. It's made in Japan. It's 52 GSM, so it's like super paper thin, like paper. It's almost as thin as tracing paper, and is really great smooth writing paper for fountain pens and ink pens. It's really highly thought of in like the writing ink sort of world, but it also works beautifully with watercolor. Like, obviously it's not going to be like watercolor paper, but it creates these really fun effects, and it has this like really fun sort of like crinkly texture to the paper, and it's just something very different. But I thought, because the paper is like super thin, sticking in a sheet like this into the book isn't going to add a whole lot of bulk to the finished book. So what I've done is I took one sheet of the A4 paper and tore it in half. Essentially, I sort of tore the edges. So this was like my little test piece, and I might still use this in some way in the spread. I'm gonna be cutting these pages down anyway, because the bullet journal is A5, and so one A4 sheet cut in half is also exactly A5, so it wouldn't fit as is. I'd have to trim it down anyway, so it's not an issue that this edge is torn. But I'm going to do this same sort of gradient sky effect again, and then at the bottom I'm going to paint in some mountains and maybe some birds flying. Just keeping it simple for the first month. Wanted to go for something warm and cozy but also colourful. I have some of my Ecoline pens picked out as well, and I have a bunch of other things picked out around me to use for the spread, so we'll see where this goes. I don't have a super huge like detailed plan in mind. I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to set up a bullet journal in like a simple manner, and I've made some notes for like the sort of spreads and things I might want to use. And yeah, so we're just gonna dive into this. This book is by Otogami, I think that's how you spell it, or how you pronounce it rather. Sorry, my voice is still a bit hoarse. I've been really sick this last week, so just had like the worst cold of my life. So I still get recovering from that, and yeah, so we're gonna, like I said, jump right in and see where we end up. So first thing I'm going to do is actually do the painting, and the paints I'm going to be using today is actually my Paul Rubens watercolor set. I've not really talked about these on the channel before, but maybe I will in a separate video if you guys are interested. And so I'm going to be using these today for the paints. Alright, I think I'm going to switch to music and potentially voiceover bits where I might need to add some information for the rest of this video, just because I can already feel my voice going and I doubt the background noise is going to get much better. So I will see you guys in the voiceover. Okay guys, so just sticking down my paper and getting ready to get started. What I did was I just used washi tape to create a border on the page, as well as stick it down onto the tabletop. Sticking it down on the tabletop wasn't really to stop it from warping, it was more just to stop it moving around whilst I was painting. The beauty of this Tomoe River paper when you put watercolour on it is it does crinkle, and that's kind of the effect I was going for. It sort of adds to the abstract feeling of this sort of sunset vibe that I was going for. And yeah, so it's literally just a case of splashing on the colours, mixing them up a little bit, blending them, and just letting the watercolour do its thing. And then whilst I was waiting for that page to dry, I mixed up some dark sort of black tones to paint on like the little mountain area at the bottom of the first little page that I'd done. And then I used a paintbrush to paint on the birds and didn't really like how they turned out. So on the first page, sorry, the second page, the one that I painted on camera, once it had dried a little bit, I went in and painted on the mountains again as well. But this time I didn't do the birds, and initially I wasn't going to do the birds at all, but then I go back later and I add the birds in with pen, which was definitely a better finish to that one. And then just taking off the masking tape, and it does rip the paper a bit, but that's fine. Probably could have been prevented had I waited for the paper to completely dry first, but I'm impatient. I set that aside to finish drying while I get started with some of the setup in the bullet journal. And so I had this stamp set that I just picked up in a local store near me, so I can't really link it, but I will try and link everything else below. Then I just created a little key on the first page. I've watched a lot of bullet journaling videos and got some ideas of things that I would like to incorporate, and I'd made a note of them, and one of them I thought was useful was having that key. So I ended up doing that. And then I'm kind of doing, instead of a full year in review or a year view page, I'm just doing a 6-month view, I guess. So I'm doing the rest of this year and the first 3 months of the new year, just so that if things come up and I want to just jot down the dates, then I can do that in this sort of calendar view. And then if I decide to stick with this bullet journaling thing going forward, when I come to set up my 2022 bullet journal, I'll do a full year in like view type thing, and then I can just transfer across any information from this calendar page to the new one. So I'm just giving them headings, and I'm just using the Ecoline pens in the colours to kind of match the sunset colours that I did on the painting. And yeah, and so now I'm just sort of figuring out how I want to lay out sort of the cover page, as it were. And you can tell already I'm making a bunch of mistakes here in that I didn't really center the calendar. This little month calendar thing that I did on this page actually didn't end up being the worst thing in the world because of what I ended up doing with this page in the end. But initially my plan was to have this centered on the page, and it's really not. And then the goals was all off-centered as well. But as you see now, this is the first page that I did that I didn't film, and so I tore off a piece of it on the side to kind of create a border or like an edge sort of for that goals page. And then the other side, like I said, I cut it down, I cut off all the edge, and yeah, now I'm using some Kuretake tape, glue tape, I'm not sure what it's called actually, and I'm just gluing down the paper into the book. So there we go. And then my camera cut out for a bit there, but I just sort of wrote on October on top of the page on the left, and now I'm just going over and sort of creating a really poor imitation of faux calligraphy there, and then just using some of the colours to bring in some more of that colour into that page. I need to go back in. I haven't actually done any of the filling in of the bullet journal, I'm just creating the spreads, so I'll go back in after the fact and fill in the what should we call it, the goals there. And now I'm just doing the monthly calendar view, and I was just sort of trying to figure out the spacing for the squares. And again, I screw up on this as well, and so the bottom 2 rows of squares are not the same size as the first 3 rows. Like I said, guys, this is my absolute first time doing this, and I'm sharing this because, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And for me, my bullet journal, whilst I've used a lot of colour, and I did do a little painting on the first couple of pages for like the cover and stuff, for the month cover, it's not a super artsy type of bullet journal. Like if I was gonna be trying to make it super creative and super like artsy all the time, I would never keep up with it, and that was kind of part of the reason why it took me so long to decide to start doing a bullet journal. So that's just my month view, nice and simple. But by adding some colour using the Ecoline pens or other coloured pens just makes it more attractive, and I think I will enjoy that aspect of it. But if I can keep it simple and keep it more of a practical type of planner, then I think I'd use it more frequently. So now I'm doing my sort of habit tracking pages. So on the left there I just have the habits, and then on the right I have a mood tracker, and then I've also decided to put in a pain tracker, because you may or may not know, if you don't follow me on other channels, that I do suffer with like a chronic back problem. So I do suffer, and I'm pretty much in pain a lot of the time. So it would be good for me to be able to keep track of like when I'm having good days and like really bad pain days, and see if there's some sort of rhythm to it, if it sort of coincides with certain things happening and things like that. So I kind of want to try and keep track of that. I've never really kept track of my pain levels, so I thought that'd be an interesting one. Then for the habit trackers that I'm tracking, I'm going to be tracking my YouTube uploads for both this channel and my knitting channel. And then I've also got a sleep tracker, Instagram tracker, because I've been very bad at remembering to post regularly over there. And then I've also got a knitting and painting tracker. I do both of those things mostly on a daily basis, but both have kind of been slipping lately as life and work and other things have gotten in the way. So I really want to make sure I'm keeping up with those things that I enjoy, and making time for those as well in my day-to-day. And then, so those were the tracking pages, and now I'm doing a brain dump page. I've seen a lot of people on a lot of different bullet journaling videos say that they've really found that to be helpful, to have like a brain dump page. And then the other side I'm using for YouTube ideas. So this is where I can jot down any ideas I have for future videos, for either this channel or my other one, and you know, or upcoming videos that I've got planned, you know, so I can keep track of what I need to still edit, what I need to film, etc. And yeah, so that's where I am with those. And now I'm going to start actually doing the weekly spreads. Now I know it's very popular for people, they'll kind of just do their weekly spreads one at a time, and then at the end of each week create the next one. I decided not to do that. I just decided to do all the weekly spreads together, just because I'm not gonna, there again, simplifying it for myself. If I can just sit down one day and spend one lot of time just doing all of it, then that's the only way it's gonna work for me. Alright, so we're coming up to the end now. Just thought I'd do a final little flip through of what I did today. So there's my year in review, the October cover, and goals that I want to write down, then the calendar month view, and then my habit tracker, mood tracker and pain tracker, then my brain dump page, YouTube ideas page. You can see stuff is very not level, and then my weekly spreads as well, keeping it super simple, super basic. Just want somewhere where I can organize my thoughts and my notes, and I'm hopeful that this will really help keep things organized for me. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe for more. I will be back hopefully with a November bullet journal spread planning thing, and I will see you in another video very soon. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye!